There's a fine line between success and responsibility. This week, Eli Lilly reported record profits, billions in new revenue from the very drugs changing how we treat the disease of obesity. But as investors celebrate, millions of patients are left asking a hard question. When will breakthrough science finally become affordable care? Because in the story of modern medicine, profit and progress often share the same sentence, but not always the same values. Hello, everybody. I'm live again, right? So I think this is the fourth time Lorraine and I have been live this week. Welcome to Downsized. My name is Christopher Durham, and we are broadcasting live from the Atlantic Ocean on board the Royal Caribbean Wonder of the Seas on our way back to Miami. So if the quality's not quite there, hopefully the sound works out great. Yeah, it depends on the weather, I suppose, and the internet. So if you're new to our channel, welcome. Lorraine and I share what's really like to live with GLP-1 medications, the stories, the science, and the reality behind the headlines. Together, we've lost more than 150 pounds using GLP-1s. These medications have changed our lives, but they've also shown us how broken the system still is for people living with obesity. Before we get into it, please remember, we're not doctors. Nothing here is medical advice. We're just two patients sharing our experience. Always talk to your own medical professional about your own care. And since we'll be talking about finances and quarterly reports and all, I'm also not a stock advisor or broker in any way. We do, however, own four shares of Eli Lilly stock. So not getting rich there, but it's interesting to see how it works. Also about that number and no order stock. And if you find this helpful, please like this video, subscribe, and hit the bell. That actually helps this conversation reach the people who need it. Now, let's talk about what Lilly just told Wall Street, because it's pretty exciting. Let me see who's here before I jump in. Oh, lots of people joining us. Hello, everyone. Hello, everybody out there. In the third quarter, Lilly reported $17.6 billion in revenue. That's up 54% from the same quarter last year. Earnings came in at $7.02 per share, way above what analysts were expecting. CEO of Lilly, Dave Ricks, called it another strong quarter and said Lilly delivered compelling financial results, gained share, and hit critical milestones in manufacturing expansion. They didn't just beat expectations, though. They raised expectations. Lilly now says they'll bring in up to $63.5 billion this year and raise their full year profit outlook to as high as $23.70 a share. So let me go back to that. They'll bring in revenue of $63.5 billion this year. And of course, the driver behind all of that is the class of drugs you and I talk about every day, the incretins, the GLP-1 and GIP family. Mounjaro, which is tirzepatide for type 2 diabetes, their brand, brought in about $6.5 billion this quarter. That's up 109% year over year. Zepbound, tirzepatide for obesity, brought in about $3.6 billion this quarter. That's up 184%. Together, just two drugs delivered almost $10 billion in a single quarter. That is more than half of every dollar Lilly made. Lilly told investors that in the United States, prescription volume for these drugs jumped 60%. They now control nearly 6 out of every 10 prescriptions in this entire category, so 60%. In their words, Lilly medicines account for nearly 6 out of 10 prescriptions within this large and growing class. That's dominance. CFO Lucas Montarch spelled out just how profitable that dominance is. He said gross margin, basically what they keep after the cost to make the drug, was 83.6% this year. 83.6% this quarter. He said Lilly's performance margin after R&D and sales cost is now 48.3% of revenue. They're doing pretty good even with all the investment. His exact language, another strong quarter of financial performance. Those are luxury margins. That's not what heart medication companies sound like. That's what high-end tech companies sound like. While all of that was being said, Lilly also reminded investors that it's paying out. They distributed $1.3 billion in dividends and bought back roughly $700 million in stock for shareholders this quarter. So that's the investor story. All the numbers, and they're giant. They're unfathomably large. They're bigger than some countries. But here's the patient story. Lilly also admitted on this same call that outside the United States, approximately 75% of Mounjaro revenue is coming from people with obesity paying out of pocket. So that's outside the United States. I want you to really hear that. 3 out of $4 Lilly is making on Mounjaro outside the United States is people with obesity paying cash without coverage. People paying themselves. People deciding, do I pay rent or do I pay for the medicine that lets me move without pain, breathe without struggling, stay alive, fight the disease of obesity? That's not access, that's desperation. I know what that feels like. I've used Zepbound, I've used Mounjaro, and I've used compounded tirzepatide. Lilly lawyers, if you're listening, during shortages, because of costs, you name it. We are fighting a disease. I've tried it all. Lorraine and I have paid out of pocket for every single dose we've ever taken. We could do that. A lot of people simply cannot. And they are being priced out of a treatment for a chronic, progressive disease. So when Lilly says we're having another strong quarter, I also hear patients are still being asked to carry this on their backs. And it's about to get bigger. Because Lilly is not just talking about selling more Zepbound, they're talking about owning the entire future of metabolic health. Let's go there. When you sit and listen to these earnings calls every quarter, you start to understand something that's easy to miss if you're just scrolling the headlines. Lilly's not building one obesity drug. Lilly is building an obesity platform and then extending it into almost every part of chronic care. Here's what they told Wall Street, and here's why you should care. Number one, of course, Orforglipron is the one we've been talking about. It's the oral daily. So that GLP-1 once daily oral pill. Exciting. No injection, no pen, no refrigeration, no mixing, a pill. On the call, Lilly said Orforglipron delivered positive results in 4 separate phase 3 trials for type 2 diabetes and multiple phase 3 trials for obesity. They said patients lost meaningful weight and had strong A1C drops. They also said in head-to-head data, Orforglipron beat oral semaglutide on both blood sugar and weight. They're openly positioning it as similar efficacy to injectable GLP-1 monotherapy, but in a pill. So they're going after Novo Nordisk's Ozempic and Wegovy. Their cardiometabolic lead, Ken Custer, said they see this as a generational opportunity to reach hundreds of millions of people. He also said the pill is easier to manufacture and distribute at scale, and that Lilly is thinking about this at a different magnitude than anything we've seen before. Dave Ricks added they're focused on speed and ready to launch. And he called their approach an all-of-the-above strategy to get Orforglipron to as many patients around the world as fast as we can. Now, here's what you care about as a patient. A pill means more people will start treatment. A pill means your primary doctor can prescribe something without having to talk you through injections. A pill means fewer supply chain choke points because pills can be made in higher volume than refrigerated injections. They're easier to distribute. But here's what Lilly did not say. They're not saying what it'll cost, who will it be covered for, and whether this is going to be something that everyone can stay on, or whether this is just becomes the starter drug for people who can pay cash. There was no commitment to affordability, not one. They also talked about a critical study called Attain Maintain. This is real world important. In plain language, they're taking people who already lost a lot of weight on drugs like semaglutide or tirzepatide, and then switching them to Orforglipron to see if they can maintain that weight loss on the pill instead of staying on injections. What that means for you, Lilly is preparing for a world where you might start on the shot, lose a huge amount of weight, and then transition to the pill to maintain it. If that works, doctors will have an argument to keep patients on treatment long-term in a way that may feel easier, less stigmatizing, and maybe cheaper month to month. But we still don't know that. If it doesn't work, if people regain, that matters too, because then maintenance isn't a pill story. It's you're staying on injections forever. Either way, they're planning for you to be on something for life. That's what Lorraine and I plan as well. Number 2, so we started with Orforglipron. Number 2 is Retatrutide. Lilly described Retatrutide as their triple agonist. We've talked about it many times here. That means it hits GLP-1, GIP, and glucagon pathways all at once. On the call, their chief scientific officer, Dr. Dan Skravonsky, essentially said Retatrutide is designed for deeper and faster weight loss than today's drugs, even more than tirzepatide. But listen to how they framed it. They're not pitching Retatrutide as everybody's drug. They're pitching it for people with very high BMI or people with serious obesity-related complications like severe joint damage, cardiovascular risk, sleep and mobility problems. In other words, the sickest patients. From a science perspective, that's stunning. We're talking about medication that could potentially hit weight loss levels that used to only be possible with bariatric surgery. From a patient perspective, it's also a warning. We are heading into a world where different tiers of obesity will have different drugs. And that opens the door to insurers saying, you're not big enough yet, or you're not sick enough yet, and making you wait. Number 3, they're talking about expanding beyond weight. This is the part of the headline that most of the headlines have skipped, and this is where Lilly showed us their real play. They are testing these same drugs, the same biology behind Mounjaro and Zepbound, tirzepatide, in osteoarthritis, knee pain, stress, urinary incontinence. Of course, we know they continue to test with sleep apnea. It's been approved for many things, cardiovascular risk reduction, and yes, addiction and alcohol use. So let me slow that one down. They told investors they have a phase 3 trial where Retatrutide is being studied in obesity with knee osteoarthritis pain. Why? Because losing a lot of weight fast can take direct pressure off damaged joints. If that data hits, Lilly won't just be selling weight loss, they'll be selling pain relief without joint replacement. They're running Orforglipron in stress, urinary incontinence, which for a lot of people, especially women, is weight-related pelvic floor strain. Translation, this pill might mean you don't pee when you sneeze. That's dignity. They're pushing incretin drugs into sleep apnea and cardiovascular protection. We've already seen that be cleared for some of these things. Not just shrinking bodies, but lowering heart attack and stroke risk. That's survival. And they're openly talking about moving incretins into addiction medicine. We've covered some of these research studies. On this call, they said they've started a phase 3 program using an incretin-based therapy to reduce alcohol use. They said there's early evidence these drugs may reduce cravings by calming reward pathways in the brain, and they're looking at opioid use disorder next. Let me say that again for people who still think these are vanity shots. You have a company telling Wall Street they're going after obesity, diabetes, heart health, sleep apnea, urinary incontinence, joint pain, and addiction with the same core class of drugs. It's not weight loss, that is full body metabolic medicine. As a patient, that sounds hopeful. As a patient, that sounds like the first real multi-condition strategy we've ever seen in obesity care. But as a patient, here's what scares me. If one company controls the science, the manufacturing, the distribution, and the pricing, what happens to people who can't afford to get in the door? Because here's what else Lilly said on the call. After all the prepared remarks, the analysts, the bankers started asking questions. And you could feel what Wall Street really cares about. Remember, these are not nonprofit organizations, right? Eli Lilly is in this to make money. They're in this to pay out dividends. They're in this to make margin. It's not about patient care. It's about profit. Chris Schott at JP Morgan wanted to know if the Mounjaro surge outside the US was real or just stocking. So were they just holding more in supply? Lilly's international lead, Patrick Johnson, said, yes, there was some stocking, but the bigger story is that demand is driven by people paying cash in 55 countries. He even broke it down. About 75% of international Mounjaro revenue is self-pay obesity use, and only about 25% is covered for type 2 diabetes. Let's pause on that one. The disease of obesity is being treated globally as a cash market. Not a covered disease, a cash market. And that's what we see here in the US as well. And then Jeff Meacham at Citi asked, how are you going to launch Orforglipron? Old school through insurers and PBMs, or new school straight to consumers through Lilly Direct? Lilly's US President Ilya Yufa said both. He called Lilly Direct a significant channel now and into the future. He talked about removing friction in the healthcare system so patients can access medications directly. That sounds great, right? Less friction, go online, get evaluated, get the drug through Lilly, pick it up at a Walmart. But I want you to hear the other truth in that answer. When the drug company becomes the prescriber and the pharmacy and the distributor, they also become the gatekeeper. If insurance won't cover you or doesn't cover obesity at all, you can still get treated, yes, but only if you can pay. Then came the big question, right? The pricing question, the one we talk about every day. Lower your prices, Eli Lilly. Assad Haider at Goldman Sachs asked about consumer pricing elasticity, especially in the UK where Lilly pushed prices up. So consumer pricing elasticity is companies stretching the boundaries of price until shoppers say no. So how high can they push things up? How much will you still pay before that you say no? That's what they want to know, because they want to charge you as much as possible. Patrick Johnson basically said demand held in the UK even when prices went up. People stayed on the drug. In plain English, we raised prices and patients did not drop off. Tim Anderson at Bank of America asked a more delicate version. Are you worried about U.S. drug price pressure, especially as the White House keeps talking about lowering obesity drug costs? Dave Rick and the team did not sound worried. They said value will always drive market outcomes. They pointed out that rules being discussed around pricing mostly hit Novo Nordisk semaglutide in Medicare first, not tirzepatide. You could hear the confidence. You could also hear the calculation. We believe we can defend our premium. So here's where that leaves us. Lilly reported $17.6 billion in revenue in one quarter. $5+ billion of that dropped to net income, so profit. They told investors they raised guidance for the year. They showed off an 83.6% gross margin. They distributed $2 billion to shareholders in buybacks and dividends. They told Wall Street they're building new factories in Texas, Virginia, and Puerto Rico to pump out even more product. They said they're moving oral drugs, neurological conditions, addiction, and even Alzheimer's prevention. They laid out a future where incretin-based medicine becomes the backbone of chronic disease management. And then in the same breath, they confirmed that right now across the world, patients are mostly paying cash. That's where the heartbreak is. I mean, we know Lilly Direct has grown obscenely for them. It's, I think, about 30% of their new prescriptions right now. So that's all cash money. And that is where the heartbreak is. Because as patients, here's what matters most to us. Can I get my medication every month without chasing 5 pharmacies? Can I afford it in January and in February and in March? Not just for 8 weeks, but for life. If I change jobs, do I lose access to the drug that finally let me live in my body without shame and constant hunger? If I'm on Mounjaro today and I switch to Orforglipron next year because it's cheaper, will I keep the weight off? Or will the weight come back and will I blame myself instead of a pricing decision made in the boardroom? Those questions. The questions GLP-1 patients ask every day were not answered on this call. I did not hear we're lowering prices. I did not hear we're committed to long-term affordability. I did not hear we believe treatment of obesity should be broadly covered like any other chronic disease. What I heard was demand is massive, willingness to pay is high, and we are going to scale to hundreds of millions of people. So I want to say something directly to Eli Lilly. We know their lawyers have watched, they've quoted Lorraine, right? You are leading the way. You are leading the single most important medical shift in obesity care in our lifetime. Honestly, in healthcare, period. You're sitting on drugs that changed diabetes care, heart health, mobility, continence, sleep pain, and even addiction. This is not cosmetic. This is survival. You know that. We know that. Now you have a choice. And it's my call. It's always my call. Be the hero. Lower the prices. Push for real coverage. Stop treating the disease of obesity like a luxury item. Start treating it like what it is, a medical condition that deserves ongoing treatment, just like high blood pressure or high cholesterol. Your continued growth will come from us, the patients. We're not just a revenue stream. We're not just a wallet to bleed dry. We're the reason you exist. If you choose affordability over arrogance and compassion, over obscene profit, over complacency. You won't just have customers, you'll have believers. You'll build something Wall Street can't measure. You'll build trust. You'll build brands that people love, brands that we advocate for, brands that we cherish. You've already changed the science. Now change the system. So let's see who's out there, because there's a lot of people out there right now. Looks like we got 141 people. All right. That's a whole mouthful. Anyway, they made a lot of money is what happened. Let's see here. Barb says, here and ready. Hello, everybody. Nurse Tara, hello, everybody. Ling says, thank you for doing all these lives for us. Of course. Morgan McChesney, Christopher, that's me. Hello, everyone. Hi, CD in the Downsized, the Thomas in North Carolina. Mindy says, hey, hey, hey. Susan says, are the drugs still so expensive? Oh, yeah, they didn't talk about lowering prices. Yes, billions. Yeah, Laura, you're exactly right there. MJ, greedy, no, 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 no. It costs them very little to make the drugs. It does indeed cost them very little to make the drugs. You know, it's I don't know. It's one of those things of, if you go back and look at those numbers about what all of the research and investment costs, it costs them a lot to do the research and investment. It certainly does, but they're still making so much more money. It doesn't matter. Linda Bookmiller says, imagine what their earnings would be if we didn't all use compounding. Well, I don't know that we could afford to all do it. I don't know that. It's one of the things that one of the judges in California said in the compounding trials was he didn't really see, basically Lilly's prices were so high, he didn't see how the average American could switch. So they just wouldn't get a lot of those. Becky Clark says, what are some of the prices for the GLP-1s in other countries? You know what, Becky, I think that's a bit of a shell game. So other countries' healthcare systems work differently. And the American system, there's really no pricing controls, or very, very minimal pricing regulation and controls on our things. And we have an incredibly complex system that involves the manufacturer making a profit, involves the drugstore making a profit, the distributor making a profit, the pharmacy benefit manager making a profit. Right, all along the way. I know, by the way, the insurance company will get a little piece of that. So they're all adding cost to the system. That's our system. It's what we have. Whether you like it or hate it, it doesn't really matter. It's what exists. When you look at other countries and they have socialized medicine, they have it just works completely different. And their governments, by and large, regulate pricing on drugs, and they by and large negotiate at scale. It's just apples to orange. Should we have cheaper prices? Absolutely, we should have cheaper prices. Does it really matter what the price is in Bangladesh? Nope, it does not. So we'll see, but they run. Let's see here. MJ says, Finland, 15 milligrams is about 500 euros. Susan says, Christopher, what do you think their markup is on Zepbound? You know, it's hard to tell the markup. If you go in and look at these numbers, they also gave you the advertising spend numbers. So the most common number we know is basically from the congressional hearings. These medications cost about $5 to manufacture per dose. Okay. Problem is, it's just not just the cost of making the medication. There's also research and investment dollars. There's also advertising dollars. There's headquarters overhead. There's all those things. So it's not just the cost of the product. Even if you said, okay, I'll give you $5 for the manufacturing, I'll give you $5 for advertising, $5 for research per dose, $5 just for profit, just for the heck of it, so they're $20 a dose. It still takes a long way to get to $400, $500, $1,000. So there's plenty of room for them to play, and you can see that in their profit. There is plenty of room to play. S-Den Will says, mine is my car payment. I paid off my car last year, and thanks goodness it's in good shape, so I'm not replacing it. It's 14 years old. I pay for my medication. I've paid since the start, $324, $12,500. Well, I hope you're getting something for that. And Hoover says, I bet the price of the pills won't be cheaper. I think they will be cheaper, Anna. I really do. Now, are they going to be as cheap as we want them to be? No. In earlier press events, Rick's talked about they have 1 million doses sitting there ready to go. I don't know. Do I think they're going to get to the numbers that the president was saying at 150 for tirzepatide? No, I don't think they're going to get to that. But is it possible they get closer to that with the pills? Yeah, it's possible to get closer to that. I think they want to take the world, and the only way they can do it is by lowering price. Let's see here. Estence is 15 milligram, currently pay $359. I've paid as high as $575 last year. Yeah, it varies by insurance and stuff. Let's see. A Chikoloff Tenchi said markup is $4.99. That's not really the markup. That's the cost to manufacture the drug. You've got to take all their overhead and add it in as well. Either way, there's a lot of markup. Grant Campbell, good afternoon. Stan says that. Nope, that was compounded. So Susan says monopoly. Yeah, the problem is they're not really a monopoly, and because you've got Novo still playing hard, and because they're still in that class of medications. Fortunately, there's a good, several hundred drugs in development all around the world. This should be here in the next few years that will dramatically change the way this is. I don't know the feds are the FTC would have to go after it for monopoly. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. Linda Bookmiller says full body metabolic medicine. That is the truth. Becky says stopped incontinence for me. Yep, me too. STEM, yes, full body metabolic medicine. My fibromyalgia has been in remission. I mean, the stuff just works. I mean, that's why they think. So MJ says, hope the Novo strikes back, although they are not giving it away either. I mean, I know Novo just made an offer to buy, what Pfizer thought they were going to buy another drug company. So that would certainly help Novo. They need some more drugs in the pipeline, but we need more companies involved. We just do. And honestly, we need the government to step up and, figure some of this out. Genealogy Mama says I was able to stop cortisone shots in hips that had bursitis since being on tirzepatide. Got off my arthritis and blood pressure meds as well. This didn't just help me lose 125 pounds, but helped much more. That's fabulous, Genealogy Mama. See, it's nothing more as cash cows. It does feel that way, Amy. I get where you are. Wellness with Dawn says in Canada, Mounjaro and Zepbound quick pens are $460 Canadian, approximately $321 USD. I wouldn't be surprised if the Zepbound pen prices come down. I mean, they're still really at $650 with the coupon, or more than $1,000 if you have to pay a full price, which most people aren't. But there are still one or two out there that are doing that. And I wouldn't be surprised if in the next few months we see the pen prices and vials come down $50 or $100. It's not going to get to $150, I don't think at all. Amy loses at $2 billion on my backs and dividends is appalling. Yeah, that's the dang truth. Health and Any Coffee. Barb says hit like and subscribe. Thank you, Barb. MJ says what will happen is people will risk and try to order some Chinese products online, even though the risk can be high and never know what is delivered. Yeah, please don't do that. We do not encourage the gray market. Death is not worth it. I assure you, you do not know what you're getting. Don't do it. Shelley owned a jab. Hello, Shelley. We will not see any relief from for the American public until there is a change. We're not doing politics, Shelley. Susan H says, please, Lily, lower your price. S10 says, my type 2 diabetes A1C was 8.9 on metformin. Now it's 4.9 on tirzepatide. I lost 103 pounds. Well, dang. That is awesome. Here, let me give you some, get up here. Give you some confetti. Where were we? Becky says, well, I retired, glad to have an HSA account, but I use the money to pay for health insurance premiums. So I can't afford expensive GLP-1 medications. Yeah, it's a lot. I know. Amanda says, great commentary, Christopher. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Barb says, health at any cost. I'm so confused. Why don't they listen to us? I mean, this seriously, why can't they see they would make more money by lowering their prices? It baffles me. It's really hard to say. what we know is that 74% of America has overweight or obesity, which means 74% of the country could potentially use some form of these medications. Not every one of them needs tirzepatide or retatrutide, but they might need orforglipron or some variation thereof. So I think sooner or later they will go after everybody because greed will win, and they'll say, I need all 74%. And then that will require lowering the prices because the high prices are artificially minimizing the market. Denise Walker, hello everyone, and liked, please Eli Lilly lower your prices for out-of-pocket expenses. They would sell a lot more medication if it were more affordable standard accounting theory. That is the truth. Health at any cost, SDN is talking about A1C. Tracy Gross Design, money is power. They won't lower the price until we're all skinny. I lost my insurance last month, and the new doesn't cover it. No way I can afford it. They will lower the price. But money is power and greed is power, and they'll lower the price because they're greedy. I assure you. Because they will look and go, 74% of the world needs this stuff. We only have 20% right now. We can get everybody. There's no way to get it at these high prices. And I mean, if we've been tracking this now since Lorraine and I started September of 2023, and the prices have come down. Have they come down to what we would like them to be? No, absolutely not. But they have come down, and I do believe they'll continue to come down. Let's see here. Eric Sonoma says it's around $800 in Dubai. Not cheap at all. Urban Prepping with Pam says, I'm moving to 5 and now need to accept someone's help with half the price. That feels horrible to me, but I'm hundreds of pounds overweight and need this drug so badly. Please, Lilly, lower your prices. We know. Virginia Olson, you're sharing with us is filled not only information, but filled with compassion. Thank you, Christopher. Well, thank you, Virginia. We appreciate it. Barb, thanks for chatting away there. My Life with Mounjaro, I'm on the UK and bought a 10 milligram for 319 pounds there. So I guess that's 350 or something. I don't know the exact exchange rate. Mounjaro, yeah. So Mounjaro is and Zepbound are the same medications. Annie Peak says, what about GLP-1 vitamin enhancers that companies are now pushing for maintenance? Do you know anything about those? I'm on maintenance and doing very well, but need to lower your cost. Yeah, they're a scam, Annie. There's just, it's not the same thing. They're just selling you stuff. So the reality is GLP-1s are made in the body naturally every time you eat, and the half-life of them is between 3 and 5 minutes if you're really, really lucky. Most of us who have this disease also have a deficiency in GLP-1s, and these injectables, or in some cases orals, come in and they kind of fill in that gap and tell your stomach, to your brain, hey, slow things down, hey, no more food noise. None of those vitamins do anything. The Kardashians are out shilling one. They're all just really expensive wastes of time. We have, until we see some real justifiable, peer-reviewed academic research on something like that, it's not something we're going to recommend. Oh, and there's Barb telling you the same thing. Let's see here. It's Darian says, was Novo Nordisk trying to, yes, Novo Nordisk is trying to obtain Metsera. They offered a higher share price, so we'll see. Well, I was reading that today. It'll be in the news this week. Darian, how are you doing, sir? Yeah, there's a bidding war going on. Amy says, I think it's really tough for us that do not have difficulties with their glucose. I have Hashimoto's, which is a whole other ballgame. Yeah, we've interviewed a few people that have Hashimoto's and a couple of other metabolic things that it seems to work pretty well for a lot of people. Oh, Kate Elliott, what did I miss? Well, you missed. Eli Lilly made a whole lot of money. They got a whole lot of new stuff coming, and they're not lowering the prices. And we need them to lower the prices. Let's see here. Annie Peak says, if they lower the price and gain more patients, they will maintain their body. Yeah, that's the general theory. Is we do really believe that's going to happen. I think it's inevitable. The real question is, when does it happen, not if it happens. Linda Bookmiller says she just got back from an annual checkup and heard words I thought I would never hear from my doctor. You don't need to lose any more weight. You're doing very well, but he knows I will never go off of it. Me too, Linda. Me too. Leslie says, my NP told me yesterday that Costco will be selling GLP-1 meds for $250 sometime soon. They're not. Costco was already selling GLP-1s. They're not selling them for $250 though. They're selling them for the same price as everybody else. And the only way that price changes is if your insurance covers it in a different way. Let's see here. I agree on the supplements. I tried them and they don't do a thing, but take my money. Yeah, don't listen to those things. Shelly on Dejab says maybe the companies that are working on procedures like Revita will upset the GLP-1 markets. I don't think they're going to upset it. I'm actually interviewing. So when we go to Obesity Week next week, I'm interviewing the CEO from that company. He will be there. They'll be there presenting. And I think that procedure, there's some other ones out there are really more complementary procedures. So I don't think it was going to do enough to get rid of a GLP-1, but I think it may help you seriously maintain. It's basically cauterizing the inside of your lower intestines. But there is the definite possibility that what we see in the next 5 to 10 years is multiple therapies that your doctor has the opportunity to mix and match different kinds of medications, different kinds of therapies like Revita, and kind of get to the best thing for you, which would be super exciting. Lil Bell says 98 says it's interesting to see the planned timeline of the trial phases. Yeah, you can download. There's a PDF. You can download all the stuff. Barb says she'd do Revita. Yeah, I think it's cool. Let's see here. All right. Let's see. Mindy lost 40 pounds, but it has taken 10 months. That is good. So we're right at a pound a month, so you're not doing too bad. All right. Let's see here. How many people do we have out here? We have 170 people and 70 likes. So exciting. All right, so that's the news today. We'll be back. So Lorraine and I are actually, as we said, still in the ocean. I can see the Atlantic looking right out. We're not too far from Miami right now. I think we're just going in circles. Then we'll be back in North Carolina, and you'll see a new weekly weigh-in on Sunday from us there, and news on Monday from us there, and then we will be in Atlanta, Georgia for Obesity Week. If you haven't RSVP'd for Obesity Week, come by and see us. We'll be at the Westin Peachtree Plaza. Go to the downsized.org. And you can RSVP. It's absolutely free. We're not selling anything. Just come say hello. I'll give you a JoJo pin. Here's a JoJo pin. Give you a JoJo pin or a button. This guy just give away stuff and tell you hello and congratulations. So no cost to you whatsoever. But come say. I think we've got about 40 people registered right now, and a bunch of the doctors that are coming. I saw today Beverly Chang, if you remember her interview. Dr. Robin Pashby will also be there. So lots of cool people coming. But make sure you come see us at Atlanta. Let's see here before I get out of here. Isn't what else everybody else saying? Anna says, thank you, Christopher. Thank you, Anna. Let's see here. Thank you so much for giving us this update. I hope you all come near Dallas sometime. You never know. Not this year, but maybe next. Certainly, I think we're trying to figure out some planning for doing some events in the new year. So I don't know where they'll be, and we do love Dallas. But maybe that'll happen. All right. So that is me for today. I appreciate you watching. My name is Christopher Durham. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe. And you'll get alerted every time we do a video like this. All right. Once again, my name is Christopher Durham, and we are the Downsized. Oh, you don't know where Lorraine is? Lorraine is at the pool. So Lorraine is at the pool. So she's hanging out. Anyway, I will see you next time.